Hello, good morning everyone and welcome to this morning's webinar. My name's Jackie and this morning we're looking at part 2 of our badging series on working with the chart of accounts. Just going to move on a slide and we'll come back to the content in just a moment. So I do just want to very quickly mention the badge series just in case you are entirely unaware. So we are doing a badge for management reports across this week and next week. So this is part 2. As you can see, we started with number 1 yesterday, which was nominal records. Now, do not worry if you've missed that. We are doing that session again later on this week, so you can join us on that session and still obtain the badge. So with the badge, what you need to do is you need to attend 5 out of the 6 different topics that we're operating over the next 2 weeks, plus the quiz. Okay, it's really important if you want to obtain your badge that you join us for the quiz in addition to those 5 sessions. We have a quiz later this week and we have one next week too. As you can see, there's a choice of different sessions there. So there may be some that suit you more than others, but if you attend 5 of the 6, then your badge will be with you by the end of this month. So just going back a slide, this is what we're going to be covering in this session today. Now, these sessions are all designed to tie in very nicely with one another. So there may be parts where I reel off into another webinar that we're maybe doing later this week, or also reference the one that we ran yesterday too. So what we're going to be looking at first of all is what is the chart of accounts, and then we've got some demonstrations to show you there. So we're going to go through adding, editing and deleting a chart of accounts. We're going to go through categories, floating categories and also checking for errors. Now throughout today's session there will be the ability for you to ask your questions. So the questions can be asked using the questions panel. There is an icon that looks like a speech bubble with the question mark in the middle, and that will allow you to type your questions and send them across there. Now, a quick question has already come through, so it's great that you're finding that feature there. I think it's just a request around a badge from the previous session. So, Dawn, if you leave that one with me, I will follow that up after today's session and just take a look into that one for you. There is also a handout, so if you want to take a copy of today's slides, there's not a huge amount of slides there today. If you do want to take a copy of them, you're looking for the icon that looks like a document with a folded corner, and that will allow you to take a copy of today's slides as well. Okay, so we're going to jump straight into the topic, which is the chart of accounts. And what is the chart of accounts? So the chart of accounts is a feature that you use and it allows you to provide structure for your management reports. Now, by default, there is a default chart of accounts that comes with the software. So if you've never gone into this before, but your reports are running okay, that's because the default is there available for you. Now, this chart of accounts helps you to allocate nominal codes to either the profit and loss report or your balance sheet report. But it also determines what those reports will look like. So whether or not you go into a huge amount of detail or whether those reports are more high level. Now, the key thing you're going to learn from today is you can have multiple layouts. You might want a bit of both. You might want a profit and loss that's very high level. You might want a more detailed profit and loss or balance sheet report. And they can be achieved using the chart of accounts, which we'll show you today. Okay, so where do you find it? We find it in the nominal codes module. Okay, so that's where we're going to be in today. So I am just going to jump across into my demonstration data. So I'm just going to bring this across now. So here we are in my data set. Now, a great tip at any point, if you want to have a go at something without impacting your live data, is that you have demonstration data. So if you want to try it out and have a little look around, you can go into File and Open Demonstration Data. And what that will do is give you a company that has data already in there. It's not your data, it's a set of our data that you can have a play around with. Okay, and that just means that you're not going to impact your live data. So I'm going to first of all go into nominal codes. And as you can see, I've got all my nominal codes here, and the feature we're looking at along the top is that of the chart of accounts. Now the chart of accounts, when you open up, will always give you one, okay? It will always give you a default layout of accounts. It might be renamed, okay? So if you've been using it for a while, it may not say default, may say something else, but there'll always be a layout in here. Okay, there is something that prevents it from being deleted if it's the only one, which I'll again detail a little bit later on. But in here, as you can see, I actually have two charts of accounts. Okay, so you can create, I think you essentially can create as many as you want. I've never seen anyone sort of take that to the limit in here. So you can create multiple. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to go along these options along the top first of all. So the first feature is to add a chart of accounts. Okay, now if I add a chart of accounts, just asks for a name. So I'm just going to call that Jackie. I'm just going to quickly add that in. And it's added it to my list, but it's also opened the chart of accounts edit window. I'll just pull it across there, and it has essentially created me a blank chart of accounts. Okay, so in here, there's nothing here yet. So this is great if you want to start from scratch. Okay, now my recommendation would be you probably want to base it on something that's already built to sort of help save you with the work. But if you want a blank chart of accounts, then the add feature is the one to use there. So as you can see, it's now added that to my list. The next one we've got is edit. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to select a chart of accounts that we want to edit. So I'm going to pick my default, and when we click on edit, you can see that this one has already got information in there. So once I'm in here, this is where I can look at the two different reports, the profit and loss and the balance sheet, and I can assign categories and also nominal codes to categories. And I can edit it from here. So from here, I can add in different categories and remove things as well. But we'll come on to that in just a moment for you. The feature of copy is a really useful one. Now, this is only available on standard and professional. Okay. Now, my recommendation is if you want to make your own chart of accounts or you want to start customizing one, so you've got the default there at all times, take a copy of it, okay, and work on the copy. And that means you're not starting from absolute scratch, but you're not worried about interfering with the original chart of accounts. So on standard and professional, you can highlight the one you wish to copy, click copy, and it creates that copy for you. From here, you can obviously go into that and rename it. Okay, so you don't necessarily need to keep it as copy one of accounts. You can rename that to be something a bit more relevant to you and your business. But as you can see, I'm starting to build up some different charts of accounts, which will allow me to use different reports in different circumstances. Next, we've got the make default option. Okay, so there's two reasons you might want to use this. First of all, when you're running a report, it always picks up a default chart of accounts for you to help you speed things up. So for example, we go into a profit and loss report, first of all, and I run to preview. When it gives me the criteria, it has a chart of accounts. Now, it's automatically selecting number one because that is my default, but if I know the default I'm going to use most of the time is actually the third one, then I can set that as my default, so it picks that one up automatically. So small time savers along the way might just help you save more time throughout the day. So you can do that by going into the chart of accounts and going make default, and you can see at the bottom which one is selected. So even when I move away to a different chart, you can see this is my current default. Okay. What it also does is this one that has been made the default is also prevented from being deleted. So it won't allow me to delete my default chart of accounts. So it almost protects it from being deleted because that's your main chart of accounts. So you can delete your other ones. There's nothing there to stop it deleting the other ones, but it won't delete your default. So you will always have a chart of accounts, even if someone does accidentally go and delete the others. So that's another reason why we want to make the default, is just to protect that from being deleted. Okay. Next two, if I'm honest, I haven't really seen anyone use these features, but I will just quickly cover those. You can print a list. So if you've got a huge list of chart of accounts and you want to have a look through them, you can print the list, or you can send the list of them to Excel, and that might help you have a look at those. A really good question is, what circumstances would require a customized chart of accounts? I'm just about to cover some sort of examples of that in just a moment, so I will show you in just a second. Okay, so first of all, I am going to close out and I am going to just go back into my profit and loss. And I just want to show you what my profit and loss looks like at the moment using my default layout of accounts. And I'm just running that for 2024 in this data set. So when I run this, I don't have a huge amount of data in there, but you can see on the profit and loss, under sales, we've got the category of product sales. And that is picking up based on my chart of accounts. So it's really important that our chart of accounts reflects exactly how we want to report. I'm going to compare a couple of the charts of accounts now for you so you can see what I mean there. Okay, so I'm going to pop back into chart of accounts and I'm going to look at my default first. Okay, so I'm going to just double click into here. And the first thing I'm going to highlight there is you can rename this. Okay, so I think someone has asked that question, can I rename the title? Absolutely, you can call this whatever you want. Okay. We've got the two tabs for the two different reports. And under profit and loss, we've got the headers, sales, purchases, direct expenses, and overheads. Now we can rename these. Okay, so you might not want to refer to it as sales, it might not be part of your sort of business model. It might be more along the lines of income. So you can actually rename the descriptions on these here. You can't, however, add any more subcategories. Okay, you have to stick with the 5 that we have here, but you can absolutely rename them. Once you rename them here, you can see sort of proposed changes on the preview. So I've changed this to income. You can see that it's now showing as income on the side here. Now, as we select each section, so I'm selecting my sales or my income section here, you can see that I have underneath some subcategories. So my income or my sales, which I am just going to change back because that is how I am working and my spelling is not quite where it should be. So under my sales, I have some subcategories. So at the moment, and what comes with the default is it's grouped as product sales, which is a range of 4,000 to 4,099. We then have export sales, which is 4,100 to 4,199, and so on, as you can see. Now, product sales may not be relevant to your business. You might not sell products, it might be more services that you sell. So what you can do again is you can rename the headers on here. And again, as you look across onto the preview, you can see the impact that's going to have on your report. So again, these are customizable to your business. Now, this is an example of a sort of high level overview here. So it's grouping all sales together. And I'm really just going to focus on the sales area here. Okay, so the sales area here is incorporating all of my nominal codes from 4,000 to 4,099 as one group of sales. Okay, and that's entirely fine if that's what you or your accountant want. That's perfectly fine. However, you can use the chart of accounts to give you more in-depth reporting too. Okay, so I'm going to compare a chart of accounts with this one here. So I'm just going to close down. I'm going to save my small changes that I've made. And what I do also have is a detailed chart of accounts. I'm just going to open this one up. So this particular one is more in depth. Okay, so rather than grouping 4,000 to 4,099 under one bracket, what we've done here is we've divided those sales up even further. So rather than general sales, in this data set, we've got sales north, which is just a single nominal code. Okay, single nominal code of 4,000 to 4,000. So we'll only report on anything posted to 4,000. Sales south, which is 4,001. Scotland 4002, and so on. I won't go through all of them. And it could be that you want to report on individual nominal codes, or it might just be that it's a smaller group of nominal codes, say 4 or 5 nominal codes you want to keep together. So this is where you can really make your chart of accounts work for you. Now, this is where when you're making a nominal code in your software, it's really important before you create that nominal code, you think about where you're popping that into your chart of accounts. What range is that going to fall in? Do I need to change some ranges to accommodate this? Think ahead. Think about what your long-term plan is for your chart of accounts. Is this going to cause you problems down the line? So it does pay to be a little bit organized when you're doing this with your chart of accounts. So I am just going to close this one down. So I'm going to pop back to the original default there. Okay, and I'm just moving on to somebody's question there because there's so many things to add in there. Is can you add subcategories? So yes, you can add subcategories. You can add them retrospectively, and it will pick up what the chart of accounts is at the point of time that you're running the report. So say, for example, I wanted to split my sales that is 4,000 to 4,099 into product sales and, for example, service sales. What I'm going to do is I can add a range in. Okay, so I can change these ranges slightly. Now, this is where we can use our keys on our keyboard to add in or to remove items. So if you want to add a line into a chart of accounts, you could just come down here and add a line in. That's absolutely fine. But it does mean that it's going to be in a slightly different order. But if I wanted to make sure that what I add in pulls through just after sales, I need to make sure I add it there. Okay, so I'm going to use my F7 key on my keyboard. And when I use my F7 key on the keyboard, I get this message, okay? And it's just saying that when I insert this line, all the categories will move down by 1, okay? It means any information on the last line will be lost, okay? Now, what it means is in here, in this area, if I scroll down, I think I've got up to 80 ranges, okay? I'll be honest, I don't think I've seen anyone use all 80 ranges, but if you were to use all 80 ranges and try to add an 81st, one of those ranges would drop off your report. Okay, so that's what it means. I'm just going to say yes to that. And as you can see, it's now added me a new line in there. Okay, so what I'm going to just do is change this to sales for products. And I'm going to pop in a new line for sales services. What I also need to do is pop in the range. So I'm going to actually do this from 4,050 up to 4,099. Okay. And I'm going to save at that point. Now that's now given me the message there that I have an incomplete chart of accounts. And when I close out of this, you'll see the term partial has appeared. Okay, so you may be sitting there at the moment with partial. It may have been there for a long, long time and you're not aware of what that means. What that means is there is a problem with that chart of accounts. Now, if I double click back into it, the way I can establish what's gone wrong is I can use the check function. Okay, so the check function allows me to see what's happened with that chart of accounts and what's causing a problem. And it's basically that my ranges are overlapping onto one another. So as you probably saw, I didn't change this range. Okay, so at the moment I've got items that are showing as sales products. If I was to use one of those codes between 4,050 and 4,099, it would show up on my report as both products and sales. So I'd be duplicating the figure. So what I really need to do is make sure nothing's overlapping by just changing that range there as well. And then when I check, I'll say yes to saving the changes. We've got no errors. So we want to make sure there's no errors in the chart of accounts. So we'll come back to that in just a second there. So as I mentioned, you can add as many ranges as you want to make this as detailed or as high level as you want. Just make sure whenever you make any changes, you always check that there are no errors in there. So this doesn't just do a structure for my profit and loss, it also does for my balance sheet too. And you can see again the subcategories we've got for our assets, our liabilities, our capital and reserves. So again, if you're going to create a nominal code and you want it to fall in a certain area, come and check your chart of accounts. Make sure you're making it in the right area for reporting purposes. Okay, now I mentioned earlier just about adding a range in. You might find actually I want to remove a line from my chart of accounts. Okay, so if I did want to revert back and I decided I just wanted to report on sales as a whole, then what I can do is again I can use my function key and use the F8, function F8, to remove that line. Okay, so that's taken me back to square one there, and I just again need to change those ranges so that all of my codes are represented. Okay, so that's the basis of the chart of accounts. Okay, so again, let's just reference there. This is a high level account, but you can just save this one, have more detailed ones which go into more depth. It could be smaller groups of nominal codes or even on an individual nominal code basis. But bear in mind, if you're going to go down that route, have a maximum of 80 ranges. Okay, so you may need to do some element of grouping there. Also remember, any changes you make here will be reflected in the preview. So if something's not quite sitting right, it's not in the right place on this report, you can use the chart of accounts to move that around if you want to. Okay, I'm going to come back to errors in just a moment. Okay, so you might find different errors in your chart of accounts, but what I'm just going to very quickly talk about next is something called floating categories. Okay, and this is probably the trickiest area of a chart of accounts to get your head around. So if you struggle with this one, don't worry, it's not going to get much tougher. So we have the ability to have floating categories on the balance sheet. Okay, and it's only on the balance sheet that you'll find this feature. And it falls within our current assets and our current liabilities. So for this one, I am just going to go back to my default. I'm just going to go back into Edit, onto my balance sheet report, and into, I'm going to do this on current assets. It doesn't matter if you do it on current liabilities. Okay, so don't worry. So a floating category is basically a nominal code or a set of nominal codes that could be an asset or a liability depending on their balance. So think about your bank account, okay? When you've got money in the bank, that's an asset. When you're overdrawn, that's become a liability. So what we want the software to do automatically is recognize we're overdrawn on this particular bank account. That needs to show as a liability on my profit and loss. Or we've got money in the account this week, that bank account is an asset. And the same with your VAT liability. Okay, so your VAT liability will be an asset if HMRC owe you money, but if you're owing money to HMRC, that is a liability there. So if I was to add a nominal code into here, so again, your default chart of accounts will have, I'm just going to expand on that just so you can see a little bit better. Your default chart of accounts will have some floating categories in there. But if I was just to add one in, for example, so I know that I'm about to create a bank account, so I'm just going to call this, so your savings probably never overdrawn, but just to put it in a different wording, and I'm just going to pop a number in, but before I click to pop the number in, it's now recognizing I'm trying to create a category on my current assets. It's asking me, do I want to copy this to current liabilities? So I'm going to say yes. And that means when we go into current liabilities, automatically that range is popped over. So just, you should always be saying yes. If you're creating a floating account, do you want to put in liabilities? Yes, I do. Okay. And then you could put your ranges in as normal. So I'm just going to put in 12, 10, for example. And 12, 10. So again, if we go back to current assets, you can see now it's copied that across automatically. So it does the work for you, essentially. And that's it for floating categories. So it's not too complicated. I can see why people do sort of worry about it, but it does the work for you if you save it correctly there. So you can have up to 10 floating categories, okay? So you can't have every single bank account on here individually. You will need to be a bit selective on there, okay? So you might just want to group them together as bank accounts. Okay, so again, if you've got any questions, please do get your questions across there. So I'm just saying we can't see the floating account option. Just check your current assets and current liabilities rather than fixed assets or long-term liabilities. Okay, it is only in current, the current option there. So have a look at that one. And the floating account only applies to the current chart of accounts. Yes. So if you've got a different chart of accounts, you'll need to go and do that floating category for that other chart of accounts too. It doesn't copy it across to all. Keep those questions coming, please. We appreciate that you've got questions there. We've got Abby and Michael on hand, so they're in the background answering those questions. So please do keep them coming. Okay, so just going to close out of this window. Apologies, my toolbar keeps appearing, so I'm just going to say yes to saving my changes there for a moment. And that's absolutely fine. So, as I mentioned, we need to make sure that you've always got a complete chart of accounts. If you've got the word partial, it means that something isn't being reported on or could be reported on twice. So, the most common example that we have on this is normally that a code isn't represented in the chart. So I'm just going to very quickly do is I am just going to change the range on one of mine to give an example of this. So I'm just going to go back into my default. And I'm just going to change this to 4004 and save. And I'm going to go back in and I'm just going to do a check on the chart of accounts. So it's telling me that there's errors. I need to run the preview so I can see exactly what it is that's wrong. Okay, and this is perfect. This has done exactly what I hoped. It's given me some different examples there. Okay, so when we've got errors, it means in this case here, I have got one range reporting from 1210 to 1239 and another range, which is the one I've just added, reporting on 1210 to 1210. So it means if there's any money in this or any figure on current assets, it's going to be reported twice, once under current asset savings and again under deposits and cash. So when I added that floating category, I actually created an overlap of ranges. So what I would need to do is just establish, do I need this floating range? If not, I can delete it. If I do need it, I'm might just need to alter this range slightly, so it maybe starts on 1211 rather than 1239. And that would also get rid of this error here, because when you do it on a floating asset, it gives you the error on both the asset and the liability. So I've created ranges that overlap, which means there could be duplicate reporting essentially. And then we've got the most common one. Nominal code is not represented in charts. So that's quite often because someone's gone into nominal codes, they've gone into new code, created the code and had no idea that they actually need to add it to the chart of accounts. The risk with this is if we run a profit and loss, it won't include this figure. So if this is heavily used or used at all, means your profit and loss isn't going to be correct. Also, if it's a year end and that has a balance, it won't clear this value down. So we always need to make sure if there's errors, we resolve them promptly, and then we can rerun the reports again after that. Okay. So to resolve this one here, I'm just going to very quickly sort of go back into it. Got nominal code 4009 not represented in the chart. So what I just need to do is revisit the chart, have a look at my ranges, and I can see quite clearly 4009 has been missed off. So I just need to change that. I could change it just to 4009, or I could change it back to where it was initially, which was 4099. We've still got the incomplete because I haven't yet resolved those overlaps yet. Okay, so that takes us to the end of the demo. I'm just going to pop back to the slides for a moment because I just want to go through a few of the slides there for you. So as I mentioned earlier, by default, the chart of accounts will group your nominal codes a little bit like what you can see on the screen there. So these are the default ranges that come in with the software. You can change these, okay? You don't have to base it on our sort of standard layout, but I would say if you can, try and work within what we've got there. There's plenty of room in these ranges with lots of free nominal codes for you to use. And this just explains the floating categories as well. So it just explains a little bit more about what a floating category is and just copying it across from both assets and liabilities. Another quick question has come through there just about nominal codes not represented in the chart, but if they don't have a balance on them, they won't impact your reports, but I would recommend to remove those. You know, if you don't have a balance on that nominal code, it's not necessarily going to cause a problem with reporting or at year end. So you might just need to address that we still want it to be represented because we don't really want any errors in the chart of accounts. So I would try and recommend to get to a point where there's no errors in there. Okay, so this is your opportunity to get your final questions across to us. While Michael and Abby are just going through those questions, I'm just going to talk about the upcoming webinars and how they tie in very nicely. So today we've shown you about the chart of accounts, which builds the structure of your two main reports, profit and loss and balance sheet. Now this afternoon, Michael will be going through those reports in addition to the trial balance. So those are the three management reports in the software. Tomorrow morning, Michael will be looking at running management reports for a previous or future financial year. And then he's also looking at the aged debtors and creditors report. And then we have Abby looking at the business dashboard. So please do, if you haven't already, get yourself registered for these sessions and you'll be eligible for your badge. Now, I'm just going to very quickly show a video now on Credible, what the software looks like, what to expect there. It is still a relatively new feature for us as well. So just want you to understand what the benefits are of using Credible and also how you're going to be able to access your badge as well. So this is just a few minutes long, and this is, again, just gives us an opportunity to have a look at your questions, see if there's any that I can demonstrate for you before we end the session there. Okay, so just bear with me 2 moments and we'll get that playing for you. Okay, apologies if there was a sound issue there. That sounded a little bit dodgy at my end, so apologies if that was the case for you guys too. Okay, so just a couple of questions that I'm going to cover. Again, please do keep them coming across. Abby and Michael are still on hand for any questions that you might have there. Just wanted to catch up with Donna. You mentioned you missed yesterday's live session and you're playing catch up. Will this still count? They do need to be live attended sessions, Donna. However, if you missed yesterday, there is another live of part one. I think it's on Thursday afternoon. Okay, so we intentionally do these in duplicate so that you have an opportunity to attend more than one. Okay, so if you've missed a session, don't worry, we're doing them again over the next 2 weeks. Each session we're running twice. Okay, thank you, Helen. It sounded okay at your end. It must just be something at my end. It sounded awful, so I was hoping no one else has put through that sound issue. Okay, other question there. It came quite early in, and I might just ask you to drop me an email. But when you register for our webinars, it is that email we will issue the badge to. Okay, so if you do have, for example, a LinkedIn profile that you want to upload your badge to, please do register with that email address for all of our webinars. When we're looking at who has earned the badge, we're looking for your email address. So if you've used different email addresses, it's going to make it hard for us to locate you. In addition, we can't really move it across to a different email address. So getting it across to your LinkedIn might cause a little bit of an issue there. There are other ways, though, you can download the file and you might be able to upload that manually. So maybe look into those options there. Reach out to me if you have any issues on that one. Just let me know and we'll see what we can do there. As I mentioned, there's a quick one about the previous badge that I'm going to have a look in very soon after the session. So please do leave that one with me and I'll follow that one up. Just to mention, again, the quiz is the compulsory element. So we have had people reach out and say, I haven't earned the badge, but they haven't attended the quiz. So we do need you to come to the quiz. And I've just gone lost what I was saying. And we do need you to come to the quiz. That's what I was going to say. We will issue them by the end of this month, so please do bear with us. We do get lots of people asking where the badge is. We just endeavour by the end of the month to get those sent out. So if you haven't heard from us by the 1st of May, we should have it well in advance of then. But give us a quick email or a nudge on the 1st of May. But we should have them out by then. Okay, let's get back to the. Okay, great question just come through there. I don't think I've registered for the quiz. How do I do that now? Let's show you. Okay, so I'm just going to pop onto my screen here with our webinars page. So all you need to do is go to sage.co.uk/webinars. That will take you to a page that will give you the different products. So you need to find our accounts one. I'm just going to see if I can demonstrate this. Yep, here we go. Sage.co.uk/webinars will bring you here. You just need to find the live webinars. And if you scroll down, we have a little dedicated section here for the badge. Okay, so the badge is there. Test your knowledge. We've got one this Friday and one next Thursday there. Okay, so please do get yourself registered there. Okay, so will previous badges be available again as it's the first I've done? Absolutely, we will be looking at badges throughout the year. I can't give any dates for any of the badges we've done previously. There may be a small wait on that, but if we do have feedback that people have missed them, you know, that might be something we prioritise. So it's certainly something I wouldn't say absolutely not, but as Michael said, there's no plans at the moment to repeat them. What I would say is keep an eye on our help centre and our webinar page, because we do try and advertise them well in advance so that you can get access to those nice and early. And at the moment, we don't have any other digital badges available to register for. We're going to try and get this one out of the way. We may have one later in the year, but I would just keep an eye on our webinar page as always. Okay, right. So that's bringing us towards the end of our time there. So we've tried to answer as many questions as possible. There may be a few that we haven't been able to answer just yet on this session, but I'm sure we'll be able to catch you on another session there. Like I say, we're back at 2 o'clock today. We've got Michael taking us through the management report, so we'd love to see you on that session. But from me for today, that's all. So thank you very much to Michael and Abby for being on hand. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll hopefully see you this afternoon at 2 p.m. But bye for now.